Jane.
Morning.
Hi, good morning, Jane.
Hey, Jane.
Right, how are we doing? Let's get rid of that.
Good morning.
Have you all found the chat window?
Yeah.
Hang on.
Is that your chat window?
So
Have I found the chat window?
you've got chat window. So Joe, if you look down at the bottom of your screen, you should have an option. There should be a toolbar with various options, including chat.
Yes, got the chat window.
Hello, yeah.
Phil, I can't see my chat window.
Who's that?
Alison.
Alison. So on your main screen, go to the bottom. The toolbar
Yeah.
should appear with various
Yeah.
options like manage participants and chat window.
Yeah, I've got that, but I can see that it's got, like, I know that two people, it's orange and it says two, but I can't see the chat window.
Okay, is it hidden at the moment then?
Oh,
So-
yes, presumably.
And are you full screen?
Yes.
Okay, let's start again. So, so if you're full screen on Zoom, go down to the bottom window and see if there is a chat icon, little
Yes,
speak
there
bubble.
is.
Click on it, and then maybe stop maximizing your screen. Maybe minimize your screen because it's probably floating around somewhere, hidden behind the other screen.
Okay.
Usually, the chat window should float over the top of the other screen, not behind.
Okay, all right.
But it might be
Okay.
hidden. Yeah.
Thank
So I'll let you all sort of practice, and the best ways to find out is just
Got it.
practice.
Thank you.
Okay, you found it now. Great,
Yes,
great.
thank you very much.
Okay, just to let you know that I've started the recording, and I'm going to get my PowerPoint up on the screen. Ready. Let's get that there. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Let's get that right. Here we go. Scare that like that. No, let's pause that.
Oh no, here's PowerPoint.
Yeah, I'm going to do that again, but this time take a screenshot so I can share that with you. Share screen. That's what I want to do. Okay, right. You should now see a PowerPoint appear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You got that?
but
Right.
there's photographs at the side.
Yeah, who can you see in the photograph? It's from last week's session.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, just to say that Becky can't get on.
Oh, can't she? Becky Eyes.
No. Yeah.
Do you know what she's trying? Is she trying a phone or a tablet or
I think it's her laptop.
laptop? Okay.
Um,
Okay. I know she's got the invitation.
yeah.
Okay. So you can all see the PowerPoint, and this is a follow.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, where is the PowerPoint?
Ah,
I can't see it.
you can't see it.
I can go anywhere, if you can send me your help.
Can anyone see the PowerPoint?
Yes, I can see it.
Yes.
I'm
Yes, I
sharing
can.
just my PowerPoint at the moment. So
I did see it.
you did see
I
it.
saw it. And it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it disappeared.
Right. Okay. So you need your main Zoom window because I'm sharing my screen at the moment, and I'm only sharing the PowerPoint window in that. I'm not sharing my whole screen. So I'll just give you a moment to maybe.
So, what do you want me to do?
Are you able to on your main Zoom window?
Yeah, I take it your cursor's on there now.
I'm sharing my screen, so that should be in the main Zoom window now.
I still can't see. Does it matter if I can't see them?
It
I
would
can listen to you.
You can listen to it and you can watch the recording. That's for sure, because it will be on the recording, Joe. If that is it, Joe that I'm talking to.
No, it's Isabel.
Oh, I'm sorry, Isabel. I'm sorry. I was the wrong.
It's all right.
Wrong window. Sorry, Isabel. I didn't see you come in the room. I can share the recording with you later and with everyone, Isabel.
Yeah. Yes.
Unless you want to go out of the room and try and come back in again.
To be honest, now I'm in. I'd rather just keep in.
Right, but do play around with your controls because I am sharing my screen and most people can see the PowerPoint window at the moment. So just have a play around until you can find, maybe look at the options, come back down to the bottom and maybe use your mouse to see what options you've got.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Phil, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's on there. Can't see my chat window anymore.
Has it disappeared?
Nikki is saying she'd like to pop in.
Nikki, yeah.
Can I minimise this and go back to my email without losing the meeting?
Yeah, you can minimise. At any point, if you want to minimise Zoom, you can do that.
Because I can't see any minimise way to minimise it.
Top right-hand corner usually is the option, or you can press the escape bar on a keyboard.
But then can I get back in?
Right, we seem to have some problems with people seeing the screen.
Oh yeah, I can see now.
Right.
I'm going to send the link to Nikki because she wants to come.
I've just stopped sharing the screen for the moment. So
Excuse me, can I ask some?
Go on then, Isabel.
Yeah. Do I need to press the chat at the bottom so that I can type in messages?
Yeah. Have you got a chat icon on the bottom toolbar?
Yeah.
Yeah. Click on that. See what happens. Yeah. Click on that. See what happens. Did a window appear? Zoom group chat?
No. Oh yes, it is. It is.
Okay.
It's there.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's similar to Teams, isn't it? Where you've got chat.
Yes, when you have a Teams meeting, there's a chat bar on the right-hand side. The only thing to remember with Zoom is sometimes it pops up as a floating chat box, and you can drag it around the screen. Screen?
Right.
Screen.
Yeah.
Screen.
That's okay. Excuse me.
Okay.
There is something at Zoom. Doesn't it cut out after about 40 minutes?
That's why I want to get on with the presentation.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Because it will do. Well, I'm going to, instead of sharing my window, I'm going to try, because that seemed to cause a problem with a couple of people. So I'm going to share my whole screen. And then in a moment, you should see a picture of, well, you tell me what the picture is. Okay. That means I know that you can see my whole screen, not just my window, the chat window.
What's that now?
He's sharing his screen.
Okay.
Bear with me.
Okay. Yeah, PowerPoint, yeah, got it.
Okay. I don't know, Isabel, can you see anything now this time?
Yeah, I can see your PowerPoint.
Ah, great. Right, we've got
it. On the list.
Oh, great.
I've got it.
Okay, right, we're a bit late starting. Let's make a start just to let you know the session's being recorded so that you can have a copy of the recording later and that other people can see it too, people that can't make it today. What I'm going to do today is a few things. I'm going to build on what I did in the basic session last week, and we're going to look at some of the Zoom features. So we're going to look at plans, free version of Zoom versus the pro version of Zoom. Security and tech issues, meetings and webinars, meetings versus webinars, options and settings for scheduling your meetings before you start them and entering rooms, screen sharing, annotations and screenshots, breakout rooms and monitoring, which is a key feature of any platform such as Zoom. I put a line under there. It's not to highlight the breakout rooms, but it's to, I think that's probably when the 40 minutes is going to come. So at that point, I will stop the meeting and I will tell you about another meeting starting 10 minutes later. But we'll come to that later because as just rightly been said, there's still an issue with the limitations. Now, some people have said that the time limit has been lifted. I don't know if that's been the case for you. Have you experienced the time limit yourselves?
No, I haven't.
Okay, for those that have used Zoom, they have found, I've done a meeting, it was scheduled for 45 minutes, and then the time limit it was lifted and I could carry on before 40 minutes. And that's happened to a number of people because Zoom have offered this for one or two meetings, but then after 2 meetings, it goes back to meetings being limited to 40 minutes only. When it's one-to-one, if it's you and one other person, there is no time limit at all. Absolutely fine on a free version. But for groups, 3 or more people, then it does stop at 40 minutes and Zoom might ask you to upgrade. However, there is a way around this, and we discussed this last week. If you have a situation where you have a class, for example, you might have a 40-minute lesson and then have a break for 10, 20 minutes. And that's what we're going to do today. I had hoped to have the pro version by now, but that's not been authorized. So I'm carrying on with the free version. So this is what we have to do, and this is what most of us will be faced with, just the free version of Zoom. That's the message that you get, and that's the message that I'll be getting around 12:30 today, and it will come up only on my screen because I'm the host, and it will say that I'm running out of time. Okay, now you may have heard a lot of issues with tech and security. So let me ask you a question. What do you think the security issues might be with something like Zoom?
Data protection.
Zoom bombing.
Data protection, Zoom bombing. Anything else?
Hacking. I've been told that's the problem, the main problem that NCC is worried about, that people can be hacked using Zoom.
Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, very good. So there's been a lot of media coverage this week and a lot within the last few days about hacking, about security flaws in Zoom. And I can't say for certainty how true or not this is. There is certainly a fear and a concern that Zoom bombing can happen. Data privacy is a possibility, and it might even be malware. There are potentials, of course, or potential pitfalls of screen sharing. What do you think those might be?
Safeguarding.
Safeguarding, yeah. That was my next screen. Safeguarding. So obviously, go on. Celia, what were you going to say?
No, it's all right. Okay. Sorry.
So yeah, I mean, obviously we have a policy on safeguarding, obviously, especially with younger learners, but any adult learners, to be honest, safeguarding is a big thing. So if you are sharing your screen, you have to be careful what you are actually sharing. And obviously if the learner is sharing, they also too have to be careful of what they are sharing. And we have to follow things like GDPR regulations in terms of the storage of emails and things like that. There is an adult learning policy, which Annette shared or reminded me about the other day, on photos and recorded image. So you can't just record a Zoom lesson with all your learners for two reasons. First of all, they may not want to be filmed or recorded. And secondly, you probably don't have their permission in advance, and you have to get you have to sign something, don't you? Just to waive the fact that they are aware that they are being recorded. Normally that applies to photographs, but it also applies to recorded images as well. And we need to know how to prevent or deal with inappropriate behavior. And somebody said Zoom bombing. I've got a picture on the screen which indicates what Zoom bombing is. So that is when somebody, an intruder who's not part of the meeting, just comes along and sabotages the meeting for no good reason. They're just mucking things up, and they just have a sort of criminal intent, and they just want to muck about with your class and derail your what you're doing in the Zoom meeting. I had this happen to me, not as a host, but as a participant the other day when somebody hijacked a session. But the reason why they hijacked the session was because the person had put not only the meeting link, but the password on a public website. So if you're going to do that, then you're going to be running the risk of a random person entering your room and sabotaging your lesson. I've done a little short Google Doc on this, so I'm not going to go into any more details now, but if you want to click on that when you get the PowerPoint, that will take you to a 2-3 page Google Doc with a bit more about what you can do with intruders. But you can always, as a host, you can remove somebody from a meeting. Ideally, you would want them not to come to the meeting in the first place. And also you can set a password for any meeting, which you should ideally not share with all and sundry. Any questions or comments about that before I move on?
Yeah, I'm asking, can I ask something?
Yep.
So generally when we're running a lesson, do we have to put in a password as well? Is there a password that we're given?
No. The general default setting is there's no password.
How's that going to be?
Can I just answer that question first? So generally there is no meeting password required, but you can enable that so that everyone that enters the room, everyone that you give just the meeting link to, and you all had a meeting link ID for today for the meeting room, you can also ask for an additional password as well, which is extra security, which will apply just to that one meeting. But obviously, if you do enable a password, you only want to tell the right people at the right time what the password is, because otherwise, if somebody else gets hold of it, somebody outside of our organization, for example, then you could run into trouble. Unlikely, but it's possible. Okay.
So there's a follow-up question.
Yeah.
If we run a lesson and we're using Zoom, do we have to send a link to our learners as well? Do they have to access the link?
So as I did today, I sent a link to everyone with the link to enter the room. So that was the direct link. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all you'd need to send to learners. If you wanted an extra level of security, I would also suggest enabling a password option. Okay. I have it so that every time, let's go to the next screening, because I'm going to come back to that in a second, because when the options for entering a room, so now on the screen, you should see my account, or a screenshot of my account with a topic of this meeting and a meeting ID and all the different aspects and options that you have for setting up a new meeting. So for today's meeting, April the 3rd, I created this meeting in my account. I called it Zoom training plus Q&A, blah, blah, blah. I join URL, in the middle of the screen, you might see join URL. That's the unique browser URL. So the unique link if you wanted to join it without a Zoom account. And on the right-hand side, I don't know if you can see, I didn't highlight it, but copy the invitation. Can you see copy the invitation on the right-hand side of the window?
Yeah.
So I click on that link and that gives me that gives me all the information that I would add into an email. I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit of feedback from somebody. Somebody's using a computer, so I'm getting the feedback of me talking. That's why I always recommend using a headset, but I'll carry on because obviously if you removed the audio of me, then you wouldn't hear what's going on. So I'll carry on. It seems to have stopped. Thank you for who's done that. So can you all see that there are various options, and when you set a meeting, this is the information that you get, and you copy the invitation in blue on the right, and that brings up a window with all the information which you just copy and paste into an email or into a WhatsApp message or into Teams or whatever you were using to share that invitation with the other people that you want to join your meeting. Any questions about that?
No, that's fine, thank you.
I'm just going to go back one.
Hi, Phil. I have a question just because sorry, I joined a bit later. You're saying if I'm going to run a lesson using Zoom, I would need to create an account, and that would be on my screen exactly what you gave me a screenshot of yours. Is that automatic?
Yeah. I think you were saying, is that Olga? I think you were saying that you would need an account to set up a meeting like this.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is what you would see. So when you set or schedule a new meeting, like I did for this session today, that's the information that will appear in your account. So in meetings, which I've highlighted on the left, this is the information you will get. And there are options within that meeting. You can always go back and edit the options. So what can be and can't be done in that meeting. And on the right hand side, you would copy, there's a blue link, which is all the information that you need to send to other people to let them join. If you've enabled the password option, that will also appear in that invitation, as you'll see later, because when I end this session, I'll give you a password for the next session. And then, as I say, any time before the scheduled time of that meeting, you can either start it there and then, if you want to start it early, or you can edit it, change the time or change some of the aspects of it. And you can cancel it, of course. You don't have to. But
did you originally press the create meeting button or something? Yes. Did you create?
So at the top, I don't know if you can see. Let me just annotate here. Can you see that?
Yes. Well,
schedule a meeting.
What does it say? Schedule a meeting.
Okay. So this is the link that you would copy. So this contains all the information. You click on that, and that you copy and paste the information that comes up, and that's all the information that I've shared in emails over the last week. If anyone.
But originally you clicked schedule a meeting, yes?
Oh yes. Before I get to this window here, I schedule a meeting. So I'm in my account. This is me signed in. I hope you can see all these annotations. Can you see those?
Yes.
Yep.
Little red. Okay. Yeah. So I'm signed in, or this is a screenshot of me signed into my account. Then I schedule a meeting. If I was just joining someone else's meeting, I'd click on this one, join meeting here. But I'm scheduling them. And this is the information here, which appears. And then you copy the information here.
And send it. Okay.
Okay. All right.
How do you sign into Zoom? You just basically go to zoomwhatever.com or something? Yes. How do you sign in?
I can send you the link afterwards.
Would you please? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Do remind me. Do remind me at the end. Okay. I'm just going to go back one. Obviously, when I annotate a screen, to come back out, I'd need to click on mouse. You can't see this yet because it's on my annotation toolbar, but it will also be on your annotation toolbar when we come on to that in just a moment. I'm just going to go back one because some people have been asking about meetings and webinars and when is it a webinar? Well, generally meetings, I would say, for smaller groups, and webinars are for larger groups. So in smaller groups, you'd have meetings where you'd keep open people's microphones and video, but especially microphones like today. I would call this a meeting. But a webinar is if you're having 50, 100 people and it's one way. So you're delivering a lecture perhaps or a class, and you're not asking people to constantly ask questions, although you can have a chat window open in webinars as well, and people can virtually raise their hands if they want to ask a question. But webinars are generally for larger participants. You can have 200, 300. I was in a webinar this morning with 300 people. I'm going to one this afternoon, which will have over 100 people. And that's the difference. Webinar is more for larger groups and more of a one-way lecture with maybe questions and answers at the end. And meetings is what you would organize if you were teaching a class of students, maybe up to 16, 18 students. And yeah, that's essentially the difference between the two of them. I just wanted to make that clear before I went on. There are general settings that apply to all. So again, if you see on the left-hand side, the toolbar that says settings, yeah? So that's highlighted. So there are lots of settings, almost too many settings in Zoom. There are default settings which will apply to all your meetings, but you can go in and change some of these. And some of these you would need to change. One of the things is whether you share your personal room, which is always the same, or whether you get Zoom to automatically create a 9-digit code, like the meeting ID code, which is the one that you share. And I generally use that because if I give somebody my room, they might try to enter my room at other times other than a scheduled meeting. So there are general settings, and these general settings apply to all meetings unless you change them individually within that individual meeting, if that makes sense. Any comments or questions about the settings before you go into using Zoom?
Yes, I have a question, please.
Go on, Deborah.
It was from the other day, but we didn't have time.
Okay.
If you want an impulse meeting, so say I'm on the phone to someone and I say, okay, let's meet in Zoom now.
Okay.
I don't want to set up a meeting and all that. I just want us to join together in Zoom. And I'm assuming that is possible. So how do you do that?
You can start a meeting anytime, and then that will generate an ID for that meeting, a 9-digit code, and you would just share that code. So you could copy that link. So I don't know if I'll be able to show you on this, but in the top left-hand, because I'm sharing my screen at the moment, in the top left-hand corner, when I'm not sharing my screen, it will have the option to a little button which you click on, and that will bring up the invitation when you're in the room. So you start Zoom, you say, oh, let's meet in Zoom. One of you starts your Zoom up, you go into a room, it automatically generates a meeting there and then you can give them ID from within Zoom and send it to them in another form by email or another form. Does that answer your question?
No, you don't need to schedule it. You can just...
No. Yeah, you could just start a meeting there and then. You can just start a meeting. Yeah, and you'll find that when you first open up Zoom, the app, if you've downloaded the app or the desktop app, and it also works with mobile devices as well, I know, you can just start a meeting, and then within the meeting you can copy the invitation and then send that to someone. Yeah, while you're in the meeting, but you don't have to schedule it. Yeah.
Or even presumably, Phil, if everyone you're speaking to at that moment, when you start the meeting, already has the desktop app, all you need is the meeting ID. Yeah. You don't actually need to send an introduction to anybody.
No, you don't.
Just give them the 9 numbers and they can get in.
Yeah, you can just give them the 9 numbers, and that's all. That's the meeting ID, and certainly in a mobile device, but also on the desktop app. Dominic, you're absolutely right. You can just share that. That's all you need. That's where I am. It's like, okay, I start a meeting. This is the code. This is where I am. This is how you get into the room that I currently am. So it's like an automatically generated meeting room. so that it's like not randomized. Well, it is a kind of randomized 9-digit code, which would be unique to that session. And you just share that code. You're right, Dominic. Yeah.
You can just on the phone, then you can just tell them on the phone what the number is.
Yeah, you could. Yeah. If it's like just say one-to-one meeting, for example, and of course one-to-ones are there's no time limit as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any more comments or questions about settings? There are a lot of settings, and I can show you some videos later which deal a lot about the different settings that you can have. Some things you'll want to enable, some things you want to disable, like whether participants can share their screen or not.
Question. Can you get subtitles up on settings? And would you need to do that if you're the host?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Zoom has so many settings that I haven't found it yet, but there probably is one for subtitles. I know that you can save the chat at the end of a session. Anyone has the option to save the chat, so everything that's put in the chat box. But subtitles is a good question. Let me just stop sharing a second and see if it's in the toolbar. I haven't come across it yet. But if anyone, does anybody know if you can get subtitles?
No.
No, I don't know.
No, I haven't come across it yet, but it's not something I've actually had to look up, but that's a good question. And I'm going to go back to sharing my screen now. Okay, right. I'm going to move on. The other thing, of course, is when you're actually in a room, can you see that on the right-hand side? Managing participants, yeah, it should say managing participants junior. If you can't see that, you might have your video or a chat window over the tops. So just drag the video box or the Zoom chat. It should be floating. Move it out of the way, and you should, if you move that around the screen, you should see another window that says managing participants. Can you see this one I'm highlighting now?
Yeah.
Yes. So as host, I can manage all the participants during a meeting, which means that if I don't like what somebody is showing visually or what they're saying, or they've got a lot of background noise, I might want to mute them. I might ask them to mute themselves, or in terms of classroom or meeting management, I might just mute them because I know it's that's causing a disruption to my delivery or to my lesson. So as host, you can remove or mute people. And as I said, the very unlikely situation that you had an intruder that wasn't supposed to be in the meeting, you could remove them as well. Okay. Any questions about that?
How do you remove them then?
Okay, I did show in a previous screen, and I will, and it will be in the PowerPoint, a link to a Google Doc which I've done. It was on a previous slide about how you do that. Okay. But I want to move on for the moment because there's other things I want to cover. Let's close that one down. Okay, let's move that to one side. Okay, now, one of the main features of Zoom, one of the key features if you're going to use it with learners, is screen sharing. Without screen sharing, you are very limited on what you can do on this platform. It's possible in Skype and other tools. But let me ask you a question. If you already use Zoom, how do you use this feature? Or if you haven't used Zoom or are fairly new to Zoom, how would you use this feature? I'm going to just give you a chance to think and come up with some ideas yourself.
Is it with the green box at the bottom, Phil, where it says share?
Yes. I mean, I'm sharing my screen at the moment. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
You could do PowerPoint.
Well.
Yeah.
Can I do? Yeah. So once I had a real nightmare this morning with lots of screens to share with different instructions. So what I realized was sometimes when I'm doing stuff, they can't see me doing it. So I had to pre-prepare every screen I wanted to share. Because and then I had to keep going out of screen sharing back into the other screen, out of screen. I may be doing something wrong, but I had to pre-prepare every screen because otherwise I think they're seeing stuff that I'm doing that they're not seeing.
Yeah. So there's two basic ways of sharing the screen. You can either share the window that you want them to see, but in this case, you're going to be sharing lots of different windows that you want them to see, or you just share, as I'm doing at the moment for easy sake, is to share my whole screen. So you see exactly what I'm seeing, but then there's issues of data and there's issues of confidentiality. And if you're
couldn't even do that. I couldn't work out how to do that.
Okay. Right. Just as a warning, I've had my 10-minute warning come up from Zoom. So that means that I need to move on. There will be a second session, which I'll invite you to before the end of the 10 minutes. But let me just give you an example of screen sharing. So can you all see if you've got your annotation tool at the top? So if you all go to the top bar, I just used it. Go up to the top bar and you should see a drop-down toolbox which has things like a stop video option, manage participants. It's similar to the bottom toolbar, but it's at the top, and there should be an annotate tool.
Yep.
Can you all find that? See if you can find the annotate tool.
Yeah. I can't find it.
Okay, you have to play around. Some of you will get there before the others. And you can draw on my whiteboard, my interactive whiteboard here. But I'd also like you to answer this question if you could, and that is, what skills does a tutor need to teach online? And you can write your answer, you can type in text with the annotate tool, you can text an answer. And if you're not capable of writing or typing something, then you can just verbally tell me in a moment.
Can I just ask someone, whoever's doing stars, how do you do that?
It's in Stamp.
It's in Stamp.
Yes, look for Stamp.
Thank you.
Okay.
I still can't find the annotate, but I had it the other day, but I can't find it.
Oh, you have had it at some point then?
Yeah, I've had it.
It's right at the top where it says View Options, and it's a drop down next to where it says you are viewing Phil Longwell's screen.
Yeah.
There's a thing that says View Options, and it's a drop down menu. So you
I've
click
got a drop down under options. It's just saying original size or enter full screen.
right. If you drop down on the arrow next to View Options,
There isn't one.
maybe at the bottom of your screen. I don't know.
I need to play around. Oh, hold on. No, I need to play around with it. It's not there.
Yeah, it does require a bit of practice sometimes, and it may be depending on whether you've maximized or minimized, or what if you've maximized your Zoom window. But there should always be a little toolbar at the top which you can go up to the top, and then it pops down. So
what happens when you start to annotate and then you want to come out of that completely, because that toolbox at the top is not appearing, is it? Because I'm still involved in the annotation, eraser, and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Well, as
on the red cross, Isabel, click on the red cross.
Where is it? Oh, right, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just going to give you a little more time just so you can all find the toolbar. And of course, as a host, I can also annotate on my screen, and I can also at any point remove stuff or clear all drawings. I'm not going to clear all drawings yet. I'm going to take a screenshot of this. Has everyone put enough stars up and enough question marks and enough doodles? Everyone happy with their doodles? Okay, I'm going to take a few more question marks coming up. Okay, so calm and patience was a good one. Good organization's another one. As Nikki alluded to earlier, just having all those different screens that you would want to share. I wouldn't overcomplicate things, and sometimes we forget about the learner here. So we think as teachers what we need to do as teachers and what we need to do in terms of delivery, but we also have to take a step back and go, well, let's think about our learners, and are they going to learn if I'm getting confused between lots of different screens and disorganization? So try and keep it simple if you can, would be my suggestion. And of course, with annotations, if I move my PowerPoint on, that annotation should stay, because you see, it's going to stay. It's a layer over the top of my of my screen. It's not actually on that particular slide, because my PowerPoint slide is behind. If you see what I mean. But after a while, as a teacher, I might go, okay, that's enough of that activity. I'm going to clear all drawings and move on to the next thing. Now, breakout rooms and monitoring, I'm a bit conscious of time, and I'd like to try breakout rooms with you when we come back after a break. So we have about 5 minutes left at the moment just to talk about breakout rooms and monitoring. Let's go back a bit. So breakout rooms, again, they are in basic meetings. You have settings for these. So in meeting basic, breakout rooms. It's always a good idea to have this switched on, so enabled here. So you enable and disable on the right hand side. So if it's blue like that to the right, then it's enabled. If it's like this, then it's disabled. Okay, so the reason is you don't always have to use a breakout room. There's no obligation to use one, but it's useful if you decide suddenly, or you plan in your lesson that you need to use a breakout rooms. Then you've always got that option, and then there's in the bottom toolbar there is 4 little squares in another square, and that is the icon, and you click on that, and that's what we're going to do when we come back after the break. Before I go on and talk a bit more about them, has anyone used breakout rooms at all?
Yeah.
Who was that?
Nikki.
And what did you do, Nikki, with your breakout rooms? Or can you give an example?
I just got them to go into small groups because I had about 15. So I got them to go into smaller groups to discuss how they were feeling and what positive things they'd achieved this week. And then they came back with the list. That was it. It wasn't that exciting, but it just meant that it was smaller groups.
Okay, great. Yeah, so it's good for pair work, for small group work. The things that we would do normally in a classroom when we get, to relieve some of our constant teacher talking time, we would get people to work in groups and pairs. And I think that's essential of any good class. And that's what we use breakout rooms in Zoom for. We could use that for, is to do that sort of thing. And of course, we can monitor as well. So not only can you, as a teacher, assign students into different groups, either randomly or manually, but you as a teacher, like you would in the classroom, you can go around and monitor those groups. So you can pop in one at a time into the different breakout rooms and ask them questions, see if they're on task, give them further instructions, get some feedback, do some feedback, anything like that. Yeah? So got about 2 minutes left, and what I'm going to do before we go into this, so what we're going to do, so when we're going to come back after the break, what I'm about to do is put you all into breakout rooms, but we're going to have a break first. And the reason I'm going to have a break is that I've only got 2 minutes left. So before the time runs out, I'm going to have to give you some instructions. Okay, so your instructions are these. Now, earlier on I was talking about the copy meeting invitation. You remember I said copy invitation, and that brings up all the data, okay, all the information. That's what you get, something like that. Okay, now somewhere not in Zoom, could you copy this information? You can right click and copy the information, or you can just make a note of the meeting ID like Dominic suggested earlier, but you also this time need a password because this has got an extra level of security. So you've got about 1 minute before this meeting automatically shuts down for you to write down the meeting ID and the password, or if you're clever, click on the Zoom meeting, but I think you won't be able to because it's on my PowerPoint only. So could you write down the meeting ID, write down the password? Okay, you all doing that?
Got to find a pen.
Oh, old-fashioned technology. Yeah.
Take a screenshot.
Take a screenshot.
Yeah, great idea. Good. Using your initiative, Dominic. Great.
A photo. Take a photo.
I'll take one too, just to take part. Screenshot. I've just done it because the Zoom meeting's going to close in less than 60 seconds. Print screen. Print screen. So write it down. With a pen. Print screen. Whatever. Because I get a 10-minute warning that the meeting is coming to an end, the 40-minute limit, and then it just stops. There's no like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 countdown. It will just stop. So we've got I'd say about 20 seconds left. So what I'd need you to do is have a break, go and make a cup of tea, have a biscuit, whatever, and come back at 12:50. We've got 10 minutes. 10 minutes break. So I'm going to go back into the other room at 12:50. See you in about 10 minutes, okay? And we'll talk about breakout rooms. Bye.
Good. Okay, look, I've sort of staunched the flow for the time being, but I need to play around with the pressure settings on the boiler now. So
okay, I'll send you a recording later.
Would you? Look, thanks very much. It's great what you're doing. It's really helpful. It's making me a lot more confident. So
good, thank you. We're going to deal with more questions and answers in this session, so hopefully some of your questions are answered in the session that's coming up. But you can always ask by email. But I'll let you go, Dominic.
Thanks,
bye.
Phil.
Bye.
See you soon. Cheers.
Hello. Wait, it worked.
Yay.
This is the first time I've done this, so.
All right. Oh, that's great.
So I'm learning simultaneously.
Good.
I'm going up to my next level as a sort of trainer. So we've got Alison. Dominic's just had his boiler burst or something, so he's gone off to domestic situation. The problems with working from home, eh?
Yeah.
All the distractions that you get with, oh, that needs fixing and that needs hoovering and that needs cleaning. Just to let you know, I am recording this session as well for Dominic and other people that can't get into this room or have problems getting back into Zoom or have an emergency issue with their cat or something. You know, and when we work from home, all sorts of things can crop up, can't they? Wouldn't normally happen. So I'll just let you get yourself sorted again. So let me just ask those that are here. So Jane, Alison, Cheryl, Joe, did you have to put in a password this time?
Yes.
It asked you. So it wasn't just the 9-digit meeting ID, but it was a password as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So the good thing about that is if you are worried about security and you want an extra level of security for your class, then just give that password to just your learners, okay?
Yep.
And you can do that as appropriate. So you don't have to have a password. But I'm saying with all this fear about Zoom and whether it can be hacked and whether it's secure, it is relatively secure if you know what you're doing and you're not so stupid in terms of giving away passwords to all and sundry. So you would manage your own class the way you would see fit, but you also manage it in terms of the information that you give them ahead of a lesson or ahead of a meeting. And let's not worry about webinars because we're unlikely to be doing webinars. It's just meetings and lessons within Zoom in that respect. Okay, so I'm glad the password issue thing worked. I'm going to share my screen before I go back into the PowerPoint, just to go over a few more of the settings. Let me get my account up. Let me get my share screen. I always must remember to share my screen first. I'm going to print screen that. Right, I'm going to share my screen. So I'm sharing my whole screen. So you should see what I see, minus a chat window perhaps.
Right.
So can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
What can you see on my screen?
Zoom meetings.
Topic, description, the time.
Yep, good. Okay, so you've confirmed that you can see what I can see. So you can see what I can see. Now this meeting right now is this meeting in my account. Okay, so all I do is I went back into my account during the break. I also made a cup of tea and got some biscuits.
Hooray.
That was your instruction, so I don't hope you and yeah, so I went back into meetings and I started this meeting at about 12:46, 12:47. Dominic joined me about a minute later and then disappeared because he had a good excuse to go. But so I'm just using this as an example of what it would look like, and as you can see on this occasion I also set the additional security password, a 6-digit password entrance. So your 9-digit randomized ID for the meeting room and then a 6-digit random password for that meeting as well. So that's an extra level of security. There are, as I already said, I'm not going to go through all of the settings because there's far too many, but if you've got any particular questions at the end of this half-an-hour session about settings and what options you can enable and disable, then I can go back into my settings and scroll through and find it in here because there's a lot of them. Go with the defaults for the time being, but you might want to, for example, you may not want to allow your other participants in the meeting to share their screens, or you might want them to share their screens. I think for teaching you would often want the option for other people to share their screens, but then you might want to do that only in breakout rooms, which we'll come on to in a minute. Okay, let us go back to the PowerPoint. You can find it. Let's start the PowerPoint from there. So I asked before the break whether anyone had used PowerPoint rooms. I don't know if Nikki's back here, but Nikki said that she had done. Yes, Nikki's there. Has anyone else used breakout rooms yet in Zoom?
No.
Yeah.
No.
No? Okay. Okay, what I'm going to do, on the right-hand side, there's an infographic about using and managing breakout rooms. I want you to have spend a minute looking at some of the ideas in there, and then I'm going to send you a copy of that in the chat window. Okay. Now I'm going to stop sharing just for a second. Go back into there. Bring up the chat window, and I'm going to share that file with everyone in the chat window. Oh, I can't. I thought I could. Oh, don't seem to have the option. I thought I could share the file in there. No, I could in Teams meeting yesterday, but obviously not in there. Okay, I can't do it that way. It doesn't really matter because what I can do is I can just invite you to think about how you would use and how you would manage breakout rooms. And the way we're going to do that is I'm going to put you all into a breakout room. I'm going to share my screen again, just so that you can see what I'm doing. Share my screen. Right. So you should see the PowerPoint again, is that right?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so your task is in red. So when I put you into there'll be random breakout rooms. Just see how many people we've got, because how many breakout rooms might depend on how many people there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 10, maybe 10 people. Okay, when I put you into the breakout rooms, Zoom, you won't see this window. It will offer me the options of how many rooms and so how many participants in each room. It will be randomized, but I will know as the host who is going into what room. So I'll give you a little warning before we go there. So when you get into the breakout room, I'd like you to discuss the question that you can see on the screen, which is discuss what you would do with your learners. So think about your learners, or think about one class that you have and what you would do with those learners in a breakout room. Okay? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, and I'm now going to create the breakout rooms. So I'm going to give a running commentary of what I'm doing, because you can't see what I can see now because I've stopped sharing my screen. It now says I've got 8 participants currently. So that's me and 8 people, which I think is quite handy. I think we'll have, let's have just 2 rooms with 4 people in each. So when I click on create room, again, you can't see this. It will automatically randomly generate breakout room 1, which will consist of Alison, Celia, Diane, and Jane. And breakout room 2, which will consist of Cheryl, Deborah, Isabel, and Joe. Okay, so you all know which room you're going to be in. It doesn't really matter whether it's breakout room 1 or 2. You don't need to know that, because you'll suddenly find you're with 3 colleagues. Okay. So I'm going to open all the rooms.
So we join.
Right. So you have
and you
to
should
join.
click on join. Bye-bye.
That's why I asked about subtitles. But
Hello.
like you with the ESOL, I
Hello.
would probably want. Hello.
Sorry, I'm your teacher coming in to monitor your group work and see if you're on task.
We're discussing what we would do, so I guess that's being on task.
Yeah, no, I'm not being strict. I'm just saying, I'm just showing you that as a host, I can pop into either of the breakout rooms. So I can only be in one breakout room at a time. But imagine it's like me going around to a small table where 4 of you are sat and you're discussing doing the task, and I'm just checking to see if you're on task. So any other ideas that you were coming up with in the small time I've given you?
Yeah, different things really.
Yeah, I think it's until we're actually doing it in situ, it's quite awkward. I mean, what Alison suggested about practicing role play is excellent, but how we would practice handwriting, I'm not quite sure if because that's something that in our lessons we would need to do. It's going to be quite an awkward
that's interesting, yes,
thing for the learners to do in a virtual capacity.
Okay, good. All right, the breakout room is coming to a close, so it was just a small experiment to see that to show you what we can do. The other group are starting to return to theirs, so I'm going to close this session and we should all return to the main screen. Okay, so I'll see you back in the main room. Hello, are we all back?
Hi.
Hi.
We're back.
Okay, I only
Yeah, great.
I only went into one of the rooms. I only had time to go into one of the rooms, breakout room 1. Those who were in the other room that I didn't join, did you manage to get in?
Yes. Yeah, we all got in.
You did. Yep. And did you have a quick chat and then come out again?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a bit rough.
Got some questions.
Yeah, I know.
Questions for you.
Yeah.
Right, okay, I'll just hold that thought for a second. I just want to just check, make sure. Did you automatically get sent back to the main room, or did you choose to go back to the main room?
I'm not sure about that.
You sent us a little message saying, come back.
Okay, yeah.
So we clicked on the join the main room.
Yeah.
We did wonder if it would happen automatically, but.
So at any point you can just go back to the main room and wait for me, or wait for the teacher back in there, because the tutor might be going around one of the other breakout rooms if there's like more than 2, and monitoring those rooms. And you're kind of, if you've done the task, for example, say you were given 10 or 15 minutes to do the task, and then you completed that task, you return to the main room, or at any point the host, the teacher could say, right, return everyone to the main room because they feel, okay, everyone has pretty much done the task and let's do some feedback now. Deborah, you had a question about using these.
Actually, I have another question first. How do we return to the main room? Because we did it before, because you sent us a little message telling us to. So how do we do it on our own?
I thought there was an option. Was there not an option that came up where you could do that, to come back by yourself?
We thought
one.
You sent us one, didn't you? You sent a
Well,
little message.
yeah, on this occasion, Zoom, I time limited it. So it was a time limited meeting, about 3 minutes. So Zoom automatically, when we went into the breakout rooms, I chose a number of options, and one of which was setting the time for it. And I think there's another option in there. So before you go into the breakout room, there's another option on, do you want people to have the option to bring themselves back into the main room? But I didn't show that today, and it's tricky in a live Zoom session because I can't show you what I see on my screen as I'm doing it. I mean, I can do a screencast video of the whole thing, but then that's going to slow Zoom down, I think. Yeah. What was your other? I hope that answers it to a certain point.
Yeah, the other question was Cheryl. Cheryl had the question, didn't you, Cheryl?
Yes, I wondered, as the tutor, once we've set the breakout rooms, where are we? Are we constantly in one or the other breakout rooms, popping in and out, or can we be on our own for part of that time?
Well, very good question. I mean, when you do this in the classroom, it is an opportunity for the teacher to gather their thoughts and to think about what they're doing next. So you may not want to go into the rooms and monitor. So you don't have to. You could just stay in the main room. You can keep an eye on the 2 rooms. You can see who has gone into what room, because a little green light appears against their name. And you can just wait for them to come back. And you could call them back at any minute. Like, come on. Like calling, like a duck, mother duck calling all her ducklings. You know, come on, come back to the room, by clicking on a button. So that's the option again that you can have. You can just stay in the main room and do something else, plan. And it's useful sometimes because you sometimes need those kind of pauses during lessons where you take stock of what you've done so far and what you've done. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Cheryl?
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Any more questions about breakout rooms or what you might do with breakout rooms? Suggestions? No.
Sorry?
No. Any more comments or questions about using breakout rooms at the moment?
That's okay.
Okay, right. Well, let's go back. Let's go back to sharing screen there. Okay, so ideas. So you've seen what Zoom can potentially do, and this week we were told officially by Denise that we should be using Teams as our virtual learning environment, and maybe Zoom, as if there was a kind of justification for using it. So a twofold question is, could you see a use for Zoom alongside Teams? And then what would you be ideas for using it, given what you've seen so far?
My worries about it would be how we can get learners to understand how to use it.
Mm-hmm. What, Zoom?
What to do. And learners that just aren't used to using IT anyway. So although the way this has gone, I think it's going to be really nice because it reduces isolation, and how lovely it would be for people to be able to see the people in their class and feel connected. But I see there's a big gap between not knowing how to get started, learners that won't know what to do, to reaching the point that we've been at this morning.
Yeah.
There is. Sorry, can I add something to that, please?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Isabel. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it possible for you to put together a really simple, I don't know, PowerPoint or something that can be sent to learners with a very, very basic breakdown of the stages, so that they can actually access this in a really simple, straightforward way? Because I agree with the last comments. You know, you've shown us quite a bit, but a lot of my learners are going to struggle, I think, to get into this.
Yeah.
There's no question about that.
Yeah.
All Teams. It doesn't matter which one we use, whether it's Teams or Zoom, there's the same problem, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, and Phil, you obviously know about this. It's obvious, you know, but we've somehow got to simplify the information so that I teach functional skills, so that my learners can actually understand this from the word go.
Is that with BKSB or something else?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm using BKSB. We've used it for some time. BKSB now is a different type of thing. But this, we need this as some type of platform, don't we? So that we can engage with them. And I think they need some really simple instructions.
Now, I agree. I think I would be rather concerned having to tell my learners what to do when I'm not confident with it myself.
And I agree with that.
Yeah, no, these are all completely valid points, totally valid points. I mean, it's all very well me with some experience of using Zoom delivering this today, but then what about our learners? We have to think about our learners here. So there's the teaching aspect, and then there's the learning aspect and what our learners are capable of doing. Now, we all know our learners ourselves. We know our groups and we know our classes, but by and large, they are not very IT literate half the time, and they need simple instructions. So, of course, a simple PowerPoint could be done, but can they even open a PowerPoint? Do they even have a laptop? Half my learners don't even own a laptop or a computer at home. So So I mean, I could do, in theory, you could do a very, very simple PowerPoint, but is that good enough? You could do a very, very simple I could do a screencast video, which shows them visually with an audio commentary what happens, or you could have a teacher doing that. But, you know, we can do that, but then can they still access things like PowerPoint? They should be able to now because they've all got an NCLS account, which is free access to Office 365. But have they downloaded it? I don't think my learners have. Have yours? But these are all very valid points. But we have to think about how we're going to deliver lessons now, given the situation that we're in, where we can't meet our learners face to face. So it's been officially told to us that Teams is the platform to use to organize and to manage all of that and to share content, but we might need something like Zoom or an alternative platform to deliver some online delivery. Yeah?
We wouldn't be able to use Skype, presumably, because that's not part of adult learning, or...
I mean, Skype would function like Zoom does in this kind of virtual classroom for synchronous, what we call synchronous delivery, where the teacher is present. But I'm just going by what has so far in the last couple of weeks been researched and looked at, and I'm going from the email that Denise sent on Tuesday, which said, we're saying, okay, we think you should use Teams. Your learners should have an NCLS email. That's what they should be using. That's how you should be communicating with them. And you are reasonably happy for us to use Zoom at the moment. If there is it says on the screen there, if there is a clear and obvious benefit to the learner over using Teams. They want us to use Teams for this kind of thing. But I was in a meeting with Alison and Nikki yesterday, and it wasn't great. There was dropouts in Teams just with a small group of ESOL tutors. And I think Zoom handles video conferencing better than Teams. And that's based upon two experiences, it wasn't a great, there was dropouts, there was issues with it.
My experiences with Teams so far has been dreadful, to be honest. And and my experiences with Zoom has been so much better. So I shall be teaching my learners with Zoom. Yeah. But then if I have to attend team meetings and stuff like that, obviously I'll do it in Teams, because that's how it's going to be done. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually teach using Zoom.
Yeah, and I would too, because I don't think my learners, even my best learner, who I contacted the other day, would not be able to use Teams. It's not user friendly for our learners, I don't think. No. It's a meeting workspace, but something like Slack is better for that than Teams. I think. I'm not an expert at Teams, so I can't be too critical, because I haven't played around with it all that much. I can see its basic functionality. It's all right for working with colleagues, but I don't think it's the platform for learners myself. Yeah. And I think this is a lot of work in progress. It wasn't until today that I realized I don't have to be starting teaching using Teams from tomorrow. It's after Easter. I don't know if that's correct, that this is supposed to be after Easter. Is that right?
It's after Easter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I've got an event happening for family learning over the Easter holidays, so it'll be interesting to see how many sign up to that and how we're going to manage the connectivity problem.
And generally, how have you found it so far in terms of contacting your learners by phoning them or texting them or emailing them and getting a response?
Quite hit and miss.
Hit and miss, yeah?
Yeah, quite hit and miss. When I come out of this meeting in a few minutes, I'm going onto a Teams meeting that I've set up for myself and another tutor and LSAs. There will only be 3 people in that meeting, so it'll be interesting to see how it copes with 3 people.
You would hope that
2 people has been fine before.
Yeah,
but
you would hope so. You would hope it would cope. Yeah. But from my limited experience of Teams, I know that Zoom handles video conferencing better. You know, I mean, I've been able to hear you all the way through. There's been hardly any lag, hardly any dropouts, background noise, husbands and stuff doing. But generally speaking, Zoom is a better platform for handling this kind of thing. Yeah. We just need to be. We just have to always be conscious of what our learners getting out of this. You know, is learning going to take place using Zoom? And I can show you some videos towards the end. I've got some resources coming out with lots of videos, and better than my instructions about how you can use screen sharing, how you can engage students, how you can make your lessons in Zoom student-centered, so that learning is taking place rather than it all being about the teacher going, "How am I going to deliver this lesson?" You know, limit it, keep it simple. Don't ask yourself as a teacher to do too much, because then you kind of. I know I would. I'd kind of lose concentration. I'd lose my place with things. I'd get flustered. Keep it simple. Know what your limitations are within Zoom, although it's got a lot of functionality, and always think about what are my learners going to get from this session. Okay. And that's kind of where I'm coming on to. So first of all, I'm going to talk about rules. Now, we have classroom rules. Any class, whether it's adult education or schools, has...
Sorry, Phil, can I...
Oh.
It's Annette here.
Hi. I can't quite hear you. Can you hear?
Phil,
Yeah.
it's Annette here.
Hiya.
Can I just say something going back to the last thing about...
You want to go back to the last slide, yeah?
No, not slide, just going back to the last comment.
Comment, okay.
I said to Amanda this morning, so if we're not going to use Teams with the learners, do they still need to have the NCLS address? And she said yes, even more so, because their personal emails are not going to be secure. So that's why they want everybody to have the NCLS address. So sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to tell everybody about that.
Oh, yeah. No, you emailed me about that this morning, didn't you?
Yes, can I add?
Yeah, I did, but not everybody perhaps knows that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Can I just add to that? So yes, everyone, all the learners need to have the NCLS addresses now, because we can use those addresses in Zoom. I'm actually, when I've had a meeting, I've done it with my NCLS address. So they need to be engaging with adult learning now with their NCLS email addresses, basically.
Right. So from now on, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because this is not going to change. This, whatever happens, even if lockdown stops or we start meeting each other face to face again, the NCLS, that will carry on. You know, they're not going to suddenly remove free access to Office 365, are they? No. This is the way forward, and this is a permanent change. So
I think in future, everyone from now on, everyone who is a new learner will automatically get an NCLS email address, so they can do everything with us using that address.
Yeah. And what do you feel about that, Deborah?
Well, as long as it works, I don't mind.
Yeah, as long as they respond. Yeah.
Exactly. And it works. That their NCLS address should work in Zoom.
Yeah.
So as I said, I'm using my NCL address in Zoom, and it seems to have no problem, and other people I've talked to, so
Good. So there is a way forward. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again, go back to my PowerPoint. I just minimize my PowerPoint for just a second there. So rules, think about your learners again, or just pick one class and think about your learners in one class. We have classroom rules. What about Zoom rules? Somebody called it a Zoominar the other day. I'm not sure about the word Zoominar, a kind of portmanteau of Zoom plus webinar. What do you think of these? Have a look at the rules. What do you think? Think about your learners. What would you add or suggest to add in respect of your learners?
They make sense to me.
Yeah, I can't think of anything to add.
No, I can't.
And in terms of a simple diagram, and we were talking just now about simplifying it for our learners, simple classroom rules, Zoom class rules, like you would have in a normal class, with a visual picture.
What about making sure that the background behind the learner is clear? Because I know that if you're in a workplace, you know, my friend that's a teacher is saying they've got to have a completely clear background so that you're not giving any information about where you live to other people.
Or can the background be blurred?
Because if people are lip reading, they're going to want to have a completely distraction-free environment anyway. But I'm wondering whether it's generally good practice, because there's a scope of, looking around people's rooms and their houses and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I've just stopped sharing my screen and added a virtual background, which is a picture of Europe at night. Now, virtual backgrounds, you can choose your own virtual background or one that's in Zoom. On the free version, you only get 3 choices. You get a picture of San Francisco,
really distracting, actually.
But I don't think it works particularly. I mean, I'm okay because all I've got in the background is my folder for my class with all my learners' names in. But other people are going to have sensitive information behind them. So you've got to think about what's behind you when you are projecting that and broadcasting that, and especially if you were recording a lesson. Then
so the screen can't be blurred. I haven't found a button.
I don't know about an option to blur. You can upload your own background, I think. I haven't tried it yet myself, but I know someone that has, and I can show you videos of that later. Can I just finish with the final couple of slides, and then we'll just deal with questions and answers for the last 10 minutes. And we've got no more than 10 minutes because it's come with a 10-minute warning. So here's a load of resources. I'm not going to go through these now, but these will be on the PowerPoint. And there's lots of resources about teaching online, problems with tech, what if the tech fails, some webinars that I've attended recently, and some teacher training videos down at the bottom, which are run by my friend Russell, who I work with as well. This afternoon, if you want more Zoom practice as a participant, I'm co-hosting a tech webinar called Teaching Online and Working with Groups and Pairs. This is at 3 o'clock this afternoon on any device near you. That's the Zoom room number. There's no password. Just turn up at 3 o'clock. I'll be there. And over to you. Answers. That will be in the, I'll send the PowerPoint out. If you want, do you want to take a screenshot of that? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you take a screenshot.
So did you just say that if you're sending this PowerPoint, that gives us the information for
Yeah.
the
I'll send the PowerPoint to everyone. And yeah, that's on there. But this is this afternoon, so you might want to take a screenshot of that just in case I don't get the PowerPoint to you in time if I'm delayed for any reason. But the whole PowerPoint with all these resources, you don't need to copy the resources down because that will be on the PowerPoint. Okay. That just leaves question and answer. Got about 5 minutes left for any questions.
Sorry, is there? Can I ask something after that, please?
Yeah.
Is there going to be some very simple guidelines that can be put together for our learners? I'm not necessarily thinking about a PowerPoint, just something very, very simple.
Are you asking me if anything is being put together?
Yes, sorry, Phil. I was just asking you if anything is going to be put together, especially in being sort of from the point of view of, say, learners who could be struggling with literacy levels.
Yeah.
As well as ICT levels as well. I mean, I think something like that would be very, very useful.
Sure. I haven't got any plans yet, but I might be. I don't know. It depends on, you know, I'm in consultation with people like Toby in terms of what I deliver in these kinds of sessions and what scope there is for me doing things like PowerPoints for learners, because that would be quite a thing to think, because I've got to think about how do you make it generic and accessible enough for all potential learners, and you're going to have to take it right down to the very basics, aren't you, Isabel?
Yeah.
You don't assume any knowledge. You don't assume they know anything about.
No.
So,
I mean, I teach GCSE learners, and I would assume that there is a basic understanding there. There's no question. But I also have functional skill learners working at entry level, really low.
Yeah.
Quite a few in one of my groups as well. So that's why I'm just talking about something that could help them.
Yeah.
It could almost be set up as a kind of a learning goal, you know, using technology to access learning or kind of getting familiar with using computers. So that's something that we could then be teaching as a way in.
So integrated into your lessons.
Pardon?
Integrated into your delivery or into your lessons.
Well, that in itself is something that you're probably going to need to be teaching in addition to the syllabus. But if it's sort of functional skill, this is a functional skill that you can use technology to keep in contact with each other.
Yeah. I mean, I would suggest that some types of classes are going to lend themselves to this kind of delivery more than others. But if you've got an IT student and they're a low-level ICT student, how are you going to teach them to use IT to learn about ICT? It's kind of, you know, chicken and the egg sort of thing. What comes first? I know, Cecilia, thank you for laughing. I mean, that is the question, isn't it? So how do we encourage our learners? How do we get them to adapt to a virtual classroom? A lot of my learners, I would suggest that half my learners do not want online lessons. They only want face-to-face. Okay, my learners, they want to be in the room with the teacher, and they don't want anything else. I mean, the refugees that I teach, I don't think they will even use Zoom, let alone Teams. I just don't see it. Half of them don't even have a computer. I ring them up and they say, oh, sometimes borrow my daughter's laptops. You know, they haven't got their own device. They have a phone, but Zoom is a bit limited. You can follow a Zoom class on your phone or on a tablet, but obviously as a teacher, you probably need the desktop app. But it's a good question that you've raised and a concern that you've raised. I personally don't know yet if I'm going to be employed in the coming weeks to do more training sessions like this. I haven't got any more planned at the moment, but I can do one. I am going to do one-to-ones with Jane and other people, but that's under the buddy system as opposed to necessarily about IT training. But I'm open to offers in terms. I mean, I've got a set of skills which I can share, and I can help create PowerPoints if necessary that are aimed at learners. Have we got any other questions? We've got about 3 minutes left.
I mean, there's almost a role there for you to be introducing learner groups in the way that you've introduced us. I mean, it's been quite new for me, certainly, to using the tool.
So a sort of introduction to using the tool.
I think that's brilliant.
Geared towards ability levels of the learner group.
Well, after the meeting, do go back to colleagues and managers and suggest these kinds of things. I mean, I'm in liaison with Deborah quite a lot at the moment. She asked me to stick all my screen recordings on YouTube, which I otherwise wouldn't have thought about doing, but I do that so that it's accessible. I also stick recordings in my OneDrive folder, which is a bit more secure than YouTube. Shouldn't be hacked, but it's a bit more secure than something like YouTube, even as an unlisted video, because all you need is the link to that unlisted video, and then anyone can see it. Couple of minutes left. Any more comments or final questions before we wrap up?
Yes, Phil. Could I just ask if you're going to do another session? I'd really like to know about co-hosting, because Joe and I will be working together on Zoom.
Right.
And it would be nice to know how to run that.
Okay. So any suggestions? Email me. Have you all got my email? You can find me anyway. I'm searchable. So okay. Okay. Go on, Jane. Yeah.
If you're doing that with Alison and Joe, maybe myself and Becky could join in as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry.
If you wouldn't mind, Alison.
Yes, of course not. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. I'm just seeing if I've got the option because See, I can. Let me just see. Alison, let's make you a host. Okay.
No.
Right. No, I'm just trying it out. I've made you a host of this meeting just for the final minute. So that gives you power now to end the meeting or to chuck people out if you wish. How does it feel?
Oh my gosh, I can't get the power.
So yeah, we're coming to the weekend. So before we knock off for the weekend, if you've got any comments, email me. If you've got any suggestions to colleagues or managers about where we take this, I'm quite happy to do another full training session next Friday for tutors, for staff, not for learners yet. But that might be something that we could work on, something for learners. Jane, you've got a comment? Go on.
Yeah, there was something on the group chat. Next Friday is Good Friday. So Nikki said, please no.
Yeah.
Nothing on Good Friday.
Nothing on Good Friday. That's a good point. Yeah. Well, it won't be Friday then. Probably best not to do it.
I did look at another training video on Google, and they did actually have subtitles. She went right down the.
Oh, okay.
It was American speaker.
For Zoom.
For Zoom. It for her ASL tutors.
Okay. In Zoom. So there must be a way then.
There was a captions thing quite way down.
Yeah. And I don't know
if that works for people.
And I know Julie, who tried to get in the other day, teaches lip sign reading or lip syncing or something. So that would be very, very useful. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to have to draw the meeting to a close. As ever, I'm not closing the meeting. Zoom is closing it within about 10 seconds. So I'll say goodbyes now. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
And I'll send the recording to you all later. Bye-bye.